Welcome back to Outside the Box, our department podcast where we are driving performance in and around the city of Sugar Land. Today I am pleased to be joined once again by Kathy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk about feedback today. Last time we were together, we kind of alluded to this, and we kind of left it hanging out there. But today we're talking about feedback. Do you give feedback?
Yes, I do give feedback.
Oh, you do?
I do. As a building principal, we give feedback. It could be something as simple as something in the hallway. It could be during a walkthrough or a pop-in, and then, of course, we have yearly evaluations. So we give lots of feedback to our teachers.
And actually, your feedback, some of your feedback, is pretty darn structured. That you have to go do annual training on how to give that feedback and what it looks like. And gosh, it's comprehensive.
It is. That is a state requirement. So that way we are aligned with our feedback. So when we are evaluating teachers, it is the same across the state.
And I think we're going to talk about some of the attributes in that formal structure of feedback, not directly, but we're going to talk about some of those attributes that make that an effective feedback tool and help drive some performance. You want to dive into this?
I do, because feedback is a gift.
It is a gift.
That you didn't ask for.
Or you know you need it sometimes, but when is it a gift, though? Only if you open it. See it. Okay. Okay, let's talk about feedback. What makes this difficult? Nobody likes hearing, hey, you messed that up, or do something different. What makes this a challenge?
I think for both our jobs, people get into whether it's teaching or the fire service or police or public service in general because they want to make a difference. Mm-hmm. Like there's a real passion. You know, nobody's in it for the money. Yeah. We're not going to get famous off of doing this. We're not traveling anyplace cool. I mean, professional development for us is in Round Rock or Dallas. But
you had the opportunity to go to Arkansas, wasn't it?
Well, yes, but it ended up being St. Louis. So try not to be too jealous.
Okay.
So, people get into our fields because they want to make a difference and because they really care. And I think it's hard when you pour everything into your job to hear maybe you could be doing it better, or the message is heard that I'm not doing it well. And it feels personal because you do care so much about what you do. This isn't an office job. This isn't me clocking in and out of Target for the day. This is what I do. I do it because I want to make a difference, because I care so much. So to hear otherwise can be hard, and it can feel like it's a personal attack when it's not meant to be a personal attack.
Yeah. And a lot of it, we put a lot of identity in our professions. Absolutely. In these public service jobs. So you're right, it's not even just the passion and the energy and the emotion, that it's identity that people go around and it's, I'm a teacher, I'm a firefighter. Mm-hmm. That, it is a big part of who we are. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a sensitive area. That's a tender nerve to start talking about when we get feedback. And it's always easier to not do the things that are uncomfortable. It's not comfortable to deliver some pointed feedback. Correct. Especially when not asked. Yes. Unsolicited advice. If you're in these formal positions, it's kind of your responsibility to deliver feedback. Doesn't make it any more fun or comfortable when you have to.
Because you like the people who work for you. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go into that brand new baby teacher who's so excited about everything and tell them, like, hey, this isn't going as well as it should.
I think another piece of delivering feedback comes with some experience or maturing, that we realize that when somebody goes and pours energy into whatever activity it is, that we see something they should be doing different, and it's a real easy trap to fall into, presuming that they should know better, which then gets us frustrated and introduces emotions into the feedback, makes it a little bit more subjective than it needs to be, instead of shifting that perspective to this person is doing it the best way they know how to, and we have more information to give them on how to improve it. And I think that helps objectify the feedback and make it more about the behavior and not the person as we deliver some of that feedback. So it's a, like I said, I think it's an easy trap to fall in. You should know better. Why don't you know better? Our frustrations get interjected instead of it still being a focus on them of they have some missing information that I have to provide them, and then packaging that the proper way.
Well, and feedback isn't always negative. Like, it's just, we obviously in schools lead with the growth mindset for our students, and then having that as teachers. Like, we can always get better. We talked about, on our last episode, just changes in the last few years. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong or you're missing something, but could you do it better? And teaching is very isolating at times. Like, you're in your room with your kids all day. I don't see how the teacher next door teaches. I, as a building principal, do get to see how everybody teaches. So that is sometimes my feedback is like, if I have a teacher who's struggling with some management, but I know her teacher next door is amazing, it's hey, let's square up and get time for you to go see her and take some actionable steps, because they learn best from each other. We learn best from each other, even as other leaders. The best ideas are always in the room. It's always with our other people. So it doesn't necessarily mean that feedback is negative. It's just that there's always room to grow. And to piggyback a little bit on your earlier statement, I think if people are not giving you feedback, they don't see something in you. And that you should be concerned about. Because if I'm giving you feedback, it's because I believe in you. And you're malleable, you're growable. Like, I believe you can do something even greater than and you may already be doing great work, but I believe in you. So the feedback truly is a gift because I care about your professional development.
It is, and we joke about it being a gift, and we're like, ha ha ha, that's funny. We say that. That's kind of how at least you and I throw that when we get the feedback that isn't feeling great. We're like, yeah, it's a gift, right? But you're right, legitimately it is. This, I think, is in line with you see your friend that has something on their face or has food in their teeth, and you don't want to embarrass them, so you don't say anything. So you let them go through the day of interacting with other people with this thing on their face or food in their teeth, and just because they don't know doesn't mean they're not embarrassed. Like, they'll find out at some point, like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing, and then they wonder the whole day, versus a quick, uncomfortable or less than comfortable piece of, hey, let me give you some information about something you don't know, and now that your friend isn't going through the day with food in their teeth or stuff on their face.
Well, again, it can be uncomfortable because you care. If I didn't care, it wouldn't be hard to tell you.
This is true, but it's again, right, that's what makes it that gift of somebody wants you to be better. Somebody thinks you can be better. And right, it's not a negative thing. It's not a judgment of, wow, you're really terrible. So I'm going to give you feedback. There is definitely some ill-intended feedback deliveries sometimes.
Yes, you can make or break somebody.
You can. And but in generally, we're talking about feedback being a gift because, yes, somebody cares. It comes from a place of concern and a desire for your growth. We talked about culture last time. Where does feedback feed into culture?
So I think feedback and being open both it's one thing to say we have to accept it, but like, again, doing what we expect, like, we also have to be willing to take feedback. And then that sets it just that as a campus, like, that is what we're centered on. And so it is a growth mindset, and that it normalizes that you're going to sometimes struggle with something, and change can be uncomfortable. And I've told my teachers, I would rather you try something outside of the box, something new for your students. And we've all done it. We've all had these great lessons that fail completely. And you're like, I will never do this again. Or it's like, ooh, that didn't go exactly how I thought. But we want to normalize taking those chances and saying, like, okay, let's try it. Let's see how it goes. And let's have people come in our rooms and say, like, okay, this went really well, or that didn't. I've had teachers, now that we have made that more of a normal thing when we meet for pre-conferences, it's, hey, I really want to talk about questioning. I'm another set of eyes. Can you keep track of how many times I ask questions? And then we can go ahead and analyze what level of questioning I am. And it's made that a normal part of our culture, is that we're going to ask for feedback, we're going to give feedback, and it's going to grow not only our teachers professionally, but it's going to grow our students. But it's just become a normal part of us.
Yeah. I like that it normalizes things, right? Like, normalizing, and not to overuse it or in the wrong way. Like, it creates this safe place to struggle. Because we work in fields that could have some pretty profound, lasting consequences in somebody's life. And risk aversion isn't really our friend. And that's not to say we should just go be careless and shoot from the hip on everything. But if we refuse to take chances, just like we talked about, culture shifts, the world changes, we don't keep up with the world. That's Bob Iger's expression, because we're Disney, love it, that innovate or die.
Yep.
It's his thing. And if we're not willing to take a couple of chances or even be a little bit more uncomfortable with the things we try, then we're not going to grow. Our organizations aren't going to grow. But part of that is getting the feedback of that did go the way you wanted it or it didn't. But being comfortable enough, being uncomfortable is what drives that growth. And we need that in an organization that is scary to take chances, that it could be a high consequence chance that we take. But it normalizes the space where we have the support and the trust around us to do something like that.
And that goes back to our previous discussion about culture and building team leaders and how do you spread that out? Because we talk about just taking it with like being innovative. It would be so much easier to change if you were at some place where things weren't already going really great. Like when we talked as a group with that guiding coalition and we talked about how are we going to get better. We're great. Our school is great. Our teachers do great work. Our kids consistently score at the top. But how do we become extraordinary then? And it's okay, but it's scary to take those chances because what we're doing right now is great. We're doing great work. So it can be real uncomfortable for somebody. Well, 94% of my kids are already scoring at level. Okay, well, how do we get to 96? Well, if I change it, we might drop back. We might drop back, but we won't know until we try. And it might be temporary where, okay, we drop back, but let's see. Now let's take this piece of feedback. We have to normalize that. And it is uncomfortable. And it's scary. It's scary when you're already, I think it's harder when you're already a high performing department, you're already a high performing school to say, we're going to change this. Whoa, what we're doing is working, but could we be even better? And then it goes back to, our favorite phrase of this is how we've always done it. Okay, but how do we get to that next level?
I think you're right that we have the if it's not broke, don't fix it. This is the way we've always done it. It's comfortable and familiar, right? Change becomes uncomfortable. The human body as an organism doesn't like change. It likes things to just be. But we talked about the permanence of culture, of the world. Things change. Like we need to change and adapt, and we need to innovate or die. And you're right. Having this bit, I think you're absolutely right. We're good. Like we're comfortable. Status quo is fine.
Yeah.
Why challenge it? Why rock the boat? But again, right, back to the culture, back to the norming. It's okay to try this. And if it doesn't go the way we intended, we're paying attention. We're taking the feedback, whether it be like actual metric measurements or our staff giving us feedback, and adjusting course, and that being what it is. But that's how we get, you're right, to extraordinary, good to great, all the fun expressions of it. And that goes back to the culture.
And it creates, you have to have that culture where it's safe to grow and you trust one another. And we've cultivated that. So we've been discussing with that same group, I can't be everywhere. I cannot be watching every teacher every day, every moment. How do we maximize our growth? And it was, well, what if we could cover each other and we could also go into rooms and help pair up stuff or be like, hey, I want to see how this is going with you. And because they are leaders on their team and they trust each other. And our teachers love to go to each other's rooms because they learn from each other. So it's okay, this is where we can do. And it's not any kind of evaluation. It's not coming back and telling me, well, this person's doing something totally wrong. It's hey, I want to come in and see, and we're going to talk about this partner, and I saw this in your room, and it was great. So now at our team PLC, like, can we share what you were doing so we can all learn from you? And it's just normalizing that, the smartest person in the room is the room. We want to get everybody in there.
And that could be a difficult thing, that I want to inject a moment of encouragement to some leaders that are trying to give feedback and trying to build this trust in their teams, that there are many of us, there are many of the people that we oversee that may have come from a culture that was different, where feedback was weaponized.
Yes.
And it does a thing to a person. So if we get somebody that comes in and isn't receptive to feedback or isn't willing to put the trust in the feedback, that's a real thing. And I think that's incumbent on us as leaders to recognize, and it's not some type of character flaw. It's not this person is useless. I think it's valuable to realize where this person may have been coming from.
Yes.
And why our feedback may not be landing the way we hope it does, and how do we package it differently? How do we approach it the right way? But goes back to the beginning of this, of packaging it in a non-emotional way, that if somebody's been the recipient of weaponized feedback, especially for a long portion of their career, and is now in a better environment, they may not know how to receive that, how to feel about that, because it may have been personal attacks for 5 years, and now suddenly it's not. I don't know about that one. But that's on us as leaders to be patient to have some of that grace and
sometimes
realize
it's having
that.
those conversations. We see that with teachers who come from other districts because the expectation in our district, part of our culture is feedback, is as administrators, we do 10 walkthroughs every week. Now, if you are not used to that, I've had more than one teacher who's like, why are you here again? Because they were only getting those walkthroughs when there was a problem. And it has to have those conversations of this is normal. This is how we grow each other. And the teacher, well, they get used to it. Kids get used to it. Teachers get used to it. They don't even say boo when I come in anymore because they just know that's part of our culture. But you have to have those conversations and build that relationship with your new people so they start to feel comfortable with you being in there.
Absolutely. I've experienced a little bit of some of the similar stuff that previous administrations were not out of our admin building very much. They weren't out at the training site or in the stations as much as some of us are now. And we're kind of through it. I think we're to it that it's a little bit more normal. It's not even the feedback. It's just us being around.
Well, it can throw up alarm bells, pun intended. But when you're suddenly are coming out here and it's, well, the previous administration only came out when there's a problem. Why are you here?
And that was exactly the conversation. It was that. And like I remember that chief comes in your station and it's okay, like P's and Q's, and we're busy. We're not messing around with stuff. And a lot of the time, like, it's not a problem. Like, we're not there to find problems. We're not out for the gotchas. That we go back to culture and it being open communication and relating to people.
And you already hired the right people.
We hired the right people, and it being, we're here for that culture building. We're here for the relationship building, and just norming communication and norming that I care enough to be in your business is the message I send. So we talked about some of those challenges, talked about what it is, talk about doing it, because feedback can be done wrong, for sure.
Yes.
So what are some attributes of effective feedback?
Timely and specific are the two that really come to mind. Like if I see something, say something kind of situation. Like if I see something, it does need to be addressed. You can't wait a few weeks and be like, or wait till worse the end of the year when I'm now doing an end of the year evaluation as well. This has been going on all year. And it's, well, you never told me. You never gave anybody a chance to grow or change. And also specific. Like we see that a lot when we get new teachers. They struggle with class management because it's one thing to read it, but the kids aren't reading the same book that they're teaching the teachers with. So they're doing things you're like, what is happening in here? And you have to learn how to manage. So, but being specific about that is helpful for those teachers of, have you tried a different callback, or don't continue until this happens, or, giving them actionable items has been feedback I have gotten from teachers that is appreciated. It's not helpful to be like, well, your kids don't listen. I know they don't listen. Like, help me. So it's more helpful to come in with, hey, I've noticed this. Maybe think about your seating arrangement. Have you tried this? There's this teacher down the hall who does a great job when the kids are in stations and independent work. Let's find a time that you can go watch her and get some feedback and just take some things back to your room. So really giving specifics, because if you don't, I feel like that's when it feels like an attack. And it's just, well, I'm doing something wrong, but you're not even trying to help me. And that's frustrating too, that, okay, well, you told me this isn't any good. How do I make it better? Because then it's a guessing game. Okay, well, when she comes in, I'm going to make sure everybody's silent all the time. And then it's, well, why aren't you kids talking to each other when they're working together? And it's, well, now I'm doing that wrong. So it's finding specifics to help grow them. And then following back up. Like if I have given you some specific feedback, then I will make a note to myself like, hey, I'm going to come back in another week to see if you've done it. And then when they have, giving that praise of, hey, I noticed you use a doorbell they love the little chimes to get the kids' attention, and it worked beautifully. Great job implementing that. Great structure. And then that also boosts, like, oh, okay, I tried it. It worked. I can try some other things. Sometimes it doesn't work. I give ideas too sometimes, and it's like, that didn't work with this group, but this did. So that's a big one, is just doing it quickly. Everybody gets nervous when I come in with my computer and I'm sitting at their back table, and then they're like, why is she still here? It's been more than 20 minutes, and it's because I can actually just answer an email, and I've already done your walkthrough, and I'm just hanging out now because I like to be in the classrooms. There's that visibility piece, and just making it normal that I'm around. But giving that feedback right away. Like I try to get my walkthrough feedback to them immediately because they want to know, what can I do? And sitting on it for a week, some people, they're like, they don't read it for a while, but some, they're going to look as soon as they get to lunch. So timely is very important.
I think even at our company level, we have a real timeliness benefit. People live together, right? And if something happens on an incident, we have to ride back in the truck together. Right. So we get a real good opportunity. But you make some good points about the specificity of it, that just saying that's not good. We do really well in the fire service to say, you suck at that, you do it again, do it better.
And even,
but that's not functional. Like, that's not how.
well, and the flip is good too. You can't just tell somebody like, oh, you did a great job on that lesson. What did I do a great job with?
Yeah.
That's not helpful either, because now I don't even know what you thought was great. So, and sometimes those are the harder ones to give feedback to. So I had a teacher who had told me, she was like, don't come in and tell me I'm doing a great job, because I can't get even better if you just say I did everything good. And then I went in and watched her lesson, and this woman, pre-K teacher, literally pulled out hay for her babies because we have so many EB students. She wanted them to understand what hay in the Three Little Pigs were. And I was like, how am I supposed to give this woman any feedback? And the feedback was, how do we incorporate that into your independent time? Mm-hmm. But that's how you get better. But it, for the bad versus the good, like, don't just, it's very generic. Oh, you did a great job on that call. What was great about it?
Yeah.
I mean, is great the barometer of, well, they didn't die? Or is it the customer service? That I think you got to be specific for the good and the bad.
And a couple points I want to get in the specificity is, it doesn't have to be specifics on this entire huge evolution of things or interaction. It can be that it's, no, the way you talk to the patient with these things was very effective. You pulled the hose out and you did these couple steps that really prevented these problems with kinks, with good hose deployment. Conversely, right, that it's, here's the thing to do better, or here's the thing to do again, needs to be an important part of that. And I forgot the second point I was going to make to it. But yes, the specifics are kind of crucial, because that's the actionable piece of it. I do think sometimes it's a challenge as we're giving feedback and it's not such a practiced thing that it's, I don't know exactly what you do to do better. I just know that wasn't good. And then that causes me frustration. Like, how do I give that kind of feedback? That's a challenge of it. But it's taking the right time to identify that, to be able to articulate it. Otherwise, you're just saying to say.
Right.
If we can't,
That's not helpful either.
Yeah.
And then you coming in is just white noise.
It is. And I guess as the receiver of feedback, what it produces is kind of how I'm going to attach the value. So if I come out of this just feeling less about myself with no items to improve, right now I see feedback as like, you're just coming to get me. And now it does feel personal. But if I come out of this with, man, it didn't feel good, but here's things I need to try to do better, okay, then I attach the value to that of where I go and I improve out of it. But there's some other things that come into play when we talk about feedback. How do you balance feedback?
Well, you have to do, I mean, okay, well, we can talk about the compliment sandwich and how that needs to just go away. Mm-hmm. But you can't always be negative all of the time. And there's different ways to give it. There's the, you did something wrong that's not going to feel good no matter what you did. You broke a policy. You know, unfortunately, both of our jobs at points, the feedback is a write-up because you did something you shouldn't have done. Sometimes it's just the management of, hey, have you tried something different, where it's just a growth point. And then there's also the praise. Like, if you see something, you know, it's like customer service. If I had a bad experience, I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to call that manager. But if I had a great experience, I'm just be like, wow, that was a great meal at that restaurant. That server was great. And I'm never going to fill out the survey. Mm-hmm. But making sure we do praise our employees. And for me, like, any kind of correction needs to be done in private. Nobody wants to be corrected in front of their peers. Unless it's an emergency, you have to change this right now. That should always be a private conversation. But we should also praise our employees publicly. Like, we need to celebrate each other. We make time at the beginning of each of our staff meetings to have time to share our celebrations. And sometimes it's teachers that they'll praise themselves, and it's hey, I tried this new strategy, my reading points went up by this, and we celebrate that. They'll celebrate each other that, oh, so-and-so's too shy to say this, but they did this, and look at what happened in their testing scores, or like parent compliments. If I get a parent compliment, we put it on our Facebook page and I email it to that staff member, because you should be celebrated. Like, that is good feedback, that if you're giving extraordinary customer service and our parents notice it, we should celebrate you. Mm-hmm. So it's a balance. Sometimes you get all the feedback within the same person, but it's just trying to find those ways. And then knowing your people. I have staff members who are very upfront and direct with me, and that's how they want their feedback. They're like, don't beat around the bush. If I did something that needs to be improved, just tell it to me. And then I've got others who just need a little bit of a softer hand, that I know they're going to take it personally, and you need to make sure it's the right time. It's the right place. I don't get people, if I know I'm going to have a courageous conversation, we're going to save it for the end of the day so you can go home. You should always leave people with dignity. So it should never be an I gotcha, or I'm going to get you in the morning and now you're stuck here all day. You can't leave. And I'm feeling terrible about myself. So it's timing it, knowing your people. And that goes back to your culture and building your relationships.
Yeah. So you don't like the compliment sandwich?
I do not. I feel like it's a cop-out. Like if you have, you can give praise and you can have glows and grows in both. We're big fans of that in teaching. It's your glow and your grow, and you can have both. But if you truly have corrective feedback saying, hey, you did this great, but here's my big problem, it just negated the whole first part of that. If there's a corrective feedback to be given, just give it. And then let that person have their time and space.
I agree. I don't think it makes it any more comfortable. And actually, I think it dilutes the message you're trying to give that person. And then you're coming back around having the same conversation again, but now you're having it with frustration because you think you addressed it. And why isn't this changed? I agree. You're right that you can have both of these. You can compliment and you can correct in the same conversation. But these are two separate pieces of the conversation.
And to me, I feel like feedback's actually, there's three. That there's your corrective feedback, there's your growing feedback, and then there's your glow feedback. And I do think your glows and grows can go together. That's not too much of a compliment sandwich. I really feel like the compliment sandwich is ineffective when you're trying to do that corrective feedback. Like, just get to the point. Don't try to make everybody feel better by saying something friendly first.
Yeah. So here we are talking about all this stuff about feedback, and here's some ways to do feedback, and we have a bit of experience giving feedback. To be clear, we're not experts at giving feedback, that we do it wrong sometimes too.
We make mistakes.
How it goes. We're human beings. But again, there goes to the objective feedback, being authentic and knowing your people. And sometimes they'll give you some grace and realize that you didn't do that right and give you a chance to correct it. But,
and an apology can go a long way too. Saying, hey, I'm human and I messed up.
Yeah.
That can go a long way.
But we're not only givers of feedback, we are receivers of feedback. And as we should, especially in formal leadership positions, we should be receivers of feedback. And I will tell you that it's also uncomfortable in leadership positions. It's just as fun as it was when I was a brand new firefighter, I guess. So, because again, we're doing the things that we think we're doing it well. We think we're putting a lot of solid effort into it. And then you get the feedback of, nope, that's not actually what you think.
Or it's landed wrong. Or your intent was changed. Yeah. It was, well, that's not the way I intended it, but it was the way it was taken, and perception is reality.
I hate that. But,
and you've got to backtrack, and that's where those apologies can sometimes come in handy.
They do, but it's the communication we said. But it is still important to receive feedback. How does feedback help leadership?
Well, I mean, we obviously receive feedback from our own bosses and our leadership teams, but also taking feedback from your staff. So being open, we've sent out staff surveys, whether it's an open door policy, or I think you need to know as a leader your own blind spots. We all have them. I know one of my own blind spots is like I move very, very quickly. I make a decision and I move on. And that doesn't work for everybody. And that can sometimes frustrate other people on my leadership team who need more time to process. So it's important within your leadership team for that feedback to have people who aren't you. That I need people who think differently than me, who process differently than me, because I know I move very quickly. I know I'm a quick decision maker. And that sometimes results in frustration because I've made a decision, I've moved on, and then it had an unintended consequence. And it's, oh, well, now we got to do this. And somebody else is like, well, if she'd thought that through a little bit further, I could have told her that would happen. So having people who will cover your blind spots, who you can run those important decisions past. And it can be, let me talk this through. Or I'm about to have a conversation with a teacher. Here's how I would deliver it. You have a better relationship with them, though. So let me have, not you do it, but let me talk this through with you. Can you coach me as a leader? You know this teacher better. I want to make sure I deliver this in a way they can hear it. And being open to that feedback. And so having people who can not only cover your blind spots, but having people who can tell you when you're wrong or approaching you is important too. Because if nobody's ever giving you feedback, then you're probably not as approachable as you think. And I know for me, my assistant principal is one, my admin assistant is one. And we were doing things for our end of the year, our teacher appreciation. And I was like, hey, I want to do this with this vendor and that with that vendor. And because it was cheaper. And I was looking at budget and how we were going to run out of money. And I wanted to make sure we could spoil our teachers in the biggest way we could. And she came back later and she's like, I've really thought about this. And I think you're wrong because I think if you do it this way, you're going to damage this vendor relationship. And so long term, yes, short term, we'd save some money and you could spend it on something else. But long term is you're probably going to damage this relationship and this person's not going to work with us again.
And let's talk about this, this time frame of this conversation. You had worked with this person before, but this person didn't directly report to you.
Correct.
And now this person directly reports to you for what? A week or two?
This was, at this time, we'd been about a month into that. And so she came and she told me, and she was right. She was absolutely right.
So a brand new boss, she's got the backbone to come in and be like, hey, I think that says a lot to the culture, to the dynamic in the relationship that's there. But how crucial was that? Like, how, hindsight being 2020, like, how much of a puddle were you about to step in?
I was. She was 100% right. I would have broken that relationship with that vendor, and she was right. And she saved me from myself, and we went with her plan. But having people who can say, hey, I think you haven't thought this through, or here's my perspective, I think you're about to mess this up. I would rather have somebody like that come in and say, hey, and save me from myself.
Yeah.
And it's just, those people are invaluable. And yes, there's a difference between those who just want to nitpick everything you do, an armchair quarterback. But you need to have those people in your team to say, have your trusted firefighters, have your trusted teachers, have a trusted office personnel, somebody on the leadership. And it should be different things. You should have people who feel comfortable say, hey, I think this isn't landing right, or hey, we've tried this and it's not working. I know my team knows that I'm very solution focused, so it's very, very helpful when they've found a solution, because I'm more likely to be like, yeah, let's try it your way then and see if that works. So, but you need to have your people to have those conversations with you.
You do, and I had a similar experience. I've had a couple of them, but one that stands out in my mind as we were talking about this, similar to this, to the kind of extreme end, is that we had a personnel issue, and I had decided a course of response that involved disciplinary action, and I was going to come in kind of hard. And one of the lieutenants came in and sat down with me, and man, I love Chuck. He's so laid back, like not as great a softball player as me, but I'll give him some credit. That he came in and he I'll give him a lot of credit that he and I don't have nearly that kind of personal relationship, that I'm willing to bet he did not know how this conversation was going to go. He wasn't even directly impacted by it. He wasn't, it would be no different tomorrow if this went through the way I wanted it to for him. It'd be no different. We came in and it was, hey, I think you are going at this the wrong way. I think you're coming in hard with it. And really his statement that sticks at me was, I understand the message you're trying to send, and I don't think this sends it. I think it's going to land differently than you want, and actually you're going to have the original problem still, and you're going to make another problem with it. I don't think this is doing what you think it's doing. And it was a really good conversation. And again, like I'm sure he didn't know how that was going to go. And I wasn't thrilled to hear that. Like, that wasn't fun. It was, no, I've decided how it's going to go, and this is what the effective approach is going to be, and we're going to fix this thing. And then to hear, no, you're not. You're not going to do it. But this, again, these are the people around. This is somebody who has seen a handful of things. That, he knows a few things because he's seen a few things. But he really helped me from making a few bigger issues and then a better approach to what the original issue was, and keeping us on task. Right? The thing was to solve this issue. The thing was to spoil the teachers this way. That still got accomplished.
Yes.
Right? But again, I like the expression stepping in the puddle. Help you step around the puddle to still get across the street and keep your shoes dry.
And just having those thought partners that, you can have those conversations with of, here's what I'm thinking, what am I missing? And having people brave enough to tell you what you're missing. It doesn't help me just to have people who say yes to everything I do. I
had one just this morning, in fact, that I brought in with a comment, and I went to the office next door, and Jake Martin is our interim EMS chief down there as we walked past, and I said, hey, this thing made my comment, and he chuckled and laughed, and he's like, yeah, no. He's like, you're not seeing that right. This is actually the intention of that. This is where that was going. He's like, you're thinking way too much on that side of it. And it was a matter of a 45-second conversation that kind of recalibrated my perspective on an event that happened, kind of got my head right for the whole day. Then instead of kind of going down this road and being grumpy, I had somebody that could bring me back and say, nah, not going to do that. But that's a big cultural thing. That doesn't happen fast. No, you have to really build your culture and your relationships to create an environment where you can trust each other to give feedback and to know that it's because you are all growing together around that central mission. Yeah. Sometimes I think evokes emotion when you see your leaders that you have some feedback to give, and I'm feeling emotional about it because we look up to this person. They're in a formally, quote unquote, higher position of authority. They should have the answers. They should know better. But you're right, these are blind spots that we're presuming, and the dangerous presumption is that this person's doing it to be malicious or to be sneaky about things, instead of thinking that person thinks that's the best approach. But I think they're missing something that they would see this differently if I provided some information. And I try to approach it that way, that I work for a boss who's very receptive to my feedback. And he jokes about it, that I come in and I say, hey, I want to give you my opinion on something. And he says, oh, great. This is really what I wanted, was your opinion on this. But he's very sincere and listens, and I appreciate that. A lot of times, I'm going to chew on that one. And he's going to do whatever he's going to do. But he heard what I had to say, especially when I think you're missing something. He's like, no, I thought of that. I appreciate you saying it. But it's very easy to get pulled into this. Our bosses, or the people that are in higher ranks than us, they should have all the answers. Why am I the one, quote, fixing their work or doing their work for them? But it is that perspective of, no, anybody we want to deliver feedback to thinks they're doing it a fantastic way, and they're doing the best that they know how to do at that moment. And it's kind of a privilege we get to help them grow by bringing in some of this information that they may not have in that perspective. So
Exactly.
Well, as we come to the close, I know you love exit tickets. You told us that last time.
I do love a good exit ticket.
So why don't you close this on out here?
My exit ticket for you today would be to ask somebody to give you feedback and just listen, not to respond, because sometimes as leaders we want to respond or explain our decisions, and just really truly listen, because feedback is a gift, but you have to be humble enough to receive it. And then you have to not just accept it, but use it to move forward. So see where you can improve, and be brave enough to reach out and ask somebody, because that can be a challenge too. Just to say, hey, I want to get better at this. How can I? What do you see that I don't?
And maybe a more intentional conversation than getting on TikTok and being like, hey, roast me. Because that'll bring some feedback, all right.
No, like set the plan of like, I want to be a better leader in whatever regard. Communication, giving feedback, supporting teams. Can you give me some feedback on how I'm doing this? Be intentional about your questioning.
You were preparing that in our notes, and I thought about it on the drive in this morning, and I have a crew picked out next week that I'm going to go sit with and have coffee that I don't hear a lot from. So I don't know if they're happy, if they're unhappy. They could be thrilled and everything's fine. But I also trust that crew to tell me if they're unhappy about something. I think want to make sure they're not just good soldiering and it's, we don't like all these things, but we're just doing what we do. I think that's going to be a good feedback conversation. I'm a little nervous. I have to emotionally prepare myself for what I'm going to hear. But, yes.
Well, remember, feedback can be both glows and grows.
It can be. So I appreciate the challenge, and I think it is valuable. And I think delivering feedback is a practice, the skill set to develop. So
for sure.
Well, Kathy, thank you for coming and discussing feedback in some of these ways that we can better interact with our people.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Well, we'll catch you next time.